All right, so welcome to Power Chats with the Power of Girlhood. I'm the founder of Power of Girlhood, Brenda Williams, and we are a girls' leadership program for girls between the ages of 8 and 18. We provide in school programming as well as we're able to insert ourselves into your existing program. So we've worked with the likes of Girl Scouts for America. We've done collaborations with Vista Maria and AFG. So we're really happy to, in the COVID season, continue to provide content and programming for girls of all ages. And so the Power Chat today is with the amazing Dr. AJ. Yes, amazing. Because her work, even though we think about mental and mental health and we think about how to make businesses and leaderships better, we sometimes tend to forget the heart. We think about the head, but the way Dr. AJ works, it combines both so that there is a coherence. And so that word might be a little big for you girls, but understanding that your head and your heart have to match. And so today, Dr. AJ is going to talk about her work in diversity inclusion, sometimes being the only woman of color in the room still in 2020. So we just want you to know that regardless to what your background is, you command any room that you walk into because you are powerful and you own that space because you have every right to be there. And the education is just a negotiable instrument, but you inherently have a right to be in any space that you want to be in. And more to the point, you have the gifts and talents to be in that space. So without further ado, Dr. AJ, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me, come on to do this chat. I really, really appreciate it, especially since raising strong girls and women is something that's so close to my heart, and not just because of who I am, also because I have a daughter, and just the power of the goddess is something that always compels me. So thank you so much.
Absolutely, yes. And so we need to recognize the divine feminine, and that is so powerful to center and acknowledge. So, Dr. AJ, if you could share with us, when did you know that you wanted to dissect the brain, that you wanted to know how we tick, how we work, what our drivers are? Like, when did you know, like, there's something to this?
Wow, that's a loaded question. So in many ways, it was really, really early on. I must have been probably like first grade, maybe even a little bit younger. That I knew that the way I thought was different, and I knew that the way other people around me were thinking, and this was back in India, was different. Um, I just didn't know how or why. So that was sort of, I guess, the beginning of my journey. And of course, growing up in the Indian culture and being groomed to become a medical doctor, um, not just any medical doctor, too. It was going to be either a cardiologist or a neurosurgeon. That's it. Those were the only
Mm,
two respectable options that were laid out in front of me. I thought, okay, well, neurosurgery, brain. I could probably figure out how people think and what makes people tick based on that. And then fast forward many, many, many years in my journey to college. At this point, my family had already migrated to America, and I was, for the first time, being told I'm a minority, and I'm like, what does that mean? I'm me. I have
mm,
my opinions. I have no problem being vocal with my opinions. What do you mean I'm a minority? And it being, coming into America and being a part of this society really helped me realize there's a lot more to this than just the brain. So I think that's where the heart piece started coming in for me of, okay, well, we're taught in school that we all think in these certain ways, But what about what like we really feel on the inside? What happens when that doesn't align? What happens when it does align? You know, all of those kind of questions, which is what led me to then go into psychology and social psychology and positive psychology.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that for many of us, we know that early. And sometimes things come into, well, we end up in therapy, going back to our inner child. So it's like we know as young as you stated. And just if you could touch more on, because some of our girls who participate in our program are also first generation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can talk about some of the maybe obstacles that you had to overcome, maybe some realizations that you had being first generation.
Absolutely. You know, so for me, my family moved here when I was 14. So I went through culture shock and puberty all at the same time. Um, I'd had like, you know, a little crush on a boy, like, you know, one of those little puppy crushes or whatever they're called when I was like 12, but I hardly think that counts. I don't even remember this boy's name at this point, but, you know, whoever he is, hope he's well. But it was, I think for me, the lessons that I learned were what not to do initially
Mm,
rather than what to do. And especially, again, you know, going through puberty and culture shock, you really want to fit in, right?
mm-hmm,
Especially in high school. I mean, if you don't fit in, that's a huge problem socially for you in
mm-hmm,
that teenage mindset framework. So in retrospect, you know, the lesson that I learned was that, you know, of course, at that time, I did everything that I could do to try and fit in. And that included not speaking up when I should have. That included letting other people dictate my reality. And when I say other people, I really mean, um, you know, Americans, Americans who don't know the immigration experience, who don't know the underlying adjustments that immigrants have to make in order to fit in, like not being able to take my Indian food to school, you know, and then asking my parents, like, hey, can you just buy me some bread and like some slices of like deli cheese or whatever? I wasn't lactose intolerant back then yet, so I could eat cheese. So, you know, because I just want to take a brown bag lunch like everybody else, you know. And I don't want to take like my dal and rice because it smells and, you know, all of this other stuff. So, in retrospect, you know, I would not put this on any teenager. However, if as a teenager and if as an immigrant, what I would tell you is if you feel compelled to speak about it, if you feel empowered to express your culture, don't let anybody else stop you. Absolutely don't. You are completely entitled and empowered to express your culture in whatever way is suitable for you. Nobody gets to tell you what is right or wrong about your culture because that is your lived experience. And you actually have a beautiful opportunity to educate others about how complex we are as human beings and to, you know, relate to them in that complexity of culture. So if you feel empowered to express your culture, don't let anybody stop you. If I could go back to my, you know, and talk to my 14-year-old self, that's the one thing I would tell her.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's so important that we embrace, you know, truly the wholeness of who we are, because I also think we do others a disservice when we don't. Like, you don't get to fully experience all, you know, who I am. And, you know, I would like for you to say your birth name, because as a girl with a heavy name,
Yes.
I love meeting other women, other women with heavy names. And for those of you who don't understand what we mean, we have so Brenda is a very ethnic name. There's no guesses about, you know, what she might be, what she could be. She's black.
Yeah.
And when you come into a space like America, the dominant culture, we see a lot of time a cultural shifting. I've had people say to me, can I call you B? Do you have a nickname? And I'm like, I do, but that's reserved for people who are close to
Yeah.
me. And there is a labor on your part, perhaps, to say my name since it is heavy. But I'm patient. Let's practice it. But you don't get to shortcut saying my name. And so Aparajita, which I think is beautiful. I do know that you go by AJ
Yes.
because it's a little easier on the tongue. But if you could say your name, because our names are prayers, say your name
Yes.
for us, please, 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 and what your name means.
Absolutely. So my full name is Aparajita Jeedigunta. Jeedigunta is actually the name of my ancestral village. So we can trace my family's lineage on all my sides back almost like a few thousand years. And so that this last name, I have the privilege of leaning back into my ancestry all the way back, which is so powerful and which it really is a privilege because a lot of people don't get to do that, especially a lot of most of my Black friends don't get to do that. They don't get to say that
Mm-hmm.
because their ancestry and their legacy was stolen from them and erased. So growing up, I didn't realize the heaviness. You know what I mean? It was just my name.
Mm-hmm.
But I think coming to America and realizing this made me appreciate my culture a lot more, made me appreciate the legacy that was visible to me a lot more. And it made me extremely proud of it. So that's why I kept my last name, even though I'm married, because for my parents, I'm the only one carrying the legacy forward. So it meant a lot to me to keep that family name. And then Aparajita is one of the most ancient Sanskrit names. It's actually a name most of our gods and goddesses, which Hinduism in philosophy is actually not a polytheistic lifestyle. It's not a religion. It's a lifestyle. Hinduism, when it originated, was never meant to be a religion. The corrupted form of it became the religion that we know it today. I shouldn't say corrupted, but the warped form of it. But as a lifestyle, we believe that there is only one God, but that God is so awesome that you cannot possibly understand the infinite number of facets of this God in terms of wisdom, wealth, love, compassion, determination, perseverance, all of these, which is where all the facets then got split into gods and goddesses. So each god and goddess is a facet of the one God. And that's what we worship because then now we have something direct to worship. Like, I need money. Goddess Lakshmi, please help, kind of a thing. Aparajita is a name that is conferred upon all of the facets of the God because it literally means somebody who can never be defeated or conquered. Yeah. So some people like to say that means that also means that it could mean invincibility. I don't think so. I think it's very human in its, at least in my understanding and expression of it, in that what it means to me is, oh, you can knock me down as much as you want, but you bet.
Yeah. Not to mention all that beautiful Taurus fury. I conversation that also we get to learn and not have the misnomers. There's nothing like having the first person and the lived experience and the narratives. And so, I mean, you definitely just taught me something today about the Hindu faith that it sounds more like these are archetypes of the one. And so, because our minds are so feeble and linear, it would blow our minds to
Yeah.
really understand.
Yeah.
And similarly, in Christianity, God has many names: Jehovah Nissi, Jehovah Rapha, God my provider, God my protector,
Exactly.
um, God the merciful. Like, it's all these different things. And I also believe, I don't want to speak, but for our Islamic brothers and sisters, um, yes, there's the one, but there's 99 names for the one. And
Yeah.
so I think that that's really powerful. In these days and times, please, whatever happens to one person happens to all of us. And so
Yes.
I think it's really important to note that, and that the power of girls to use their voices and to draw on whatever they, subscribe to as a higher power. We need that voice so
Yeah.
desperately in these
Absolutely.
days, and that you're in your right to express your faith. You're in your right to express and have people call you by your name, your
Yes.
full name,
Yeah.
no matter how heavy it is, because it's so
Yes.
rich. And
Yes.
as you stated, that knowing of what you're called to do in this life happened for you first and second grade. And many girls know exactly what they want to do. It's just up to us adults to not project. And ethnic girl problems, in African American community, let's see, you can be an engineer, you can be a lawyer, you can be a doctor. Tax professional is acceptable. If you're gonna be poor, you can be a teacher, because that's noble. That's a
Yeah.
noble job. But this, the
Yeah.
yeah, those are like the professions in the wheelhouse. But when you say anything like, "Oh, I want to be a poet," or yeah, like how are you gonna get paid to do that? Or an entrepreneur, or things that kind of break rank from that, yeah, can be very difficult. So, of course, I can talk to you all day long,
I
and I
know.
just feel like you are full of just such insight and wisdom. And I'm telling you, like, seriously, you sat me down,
Oh,
and I'm
thank
like, oh wow, like I had a really teachable learning moment. And that's why I'm so grateful for you, your friendship,
you. Oh,
your
me too.
generosity to our program, and your generosity that you're extending toward our girls and their families at this moment. So yes, going back to a younger version of yourself, especially looking at where we are right now in this country. We're collectively mourning the loss of George Floyd, but we're also now addressing, I think, at least in my lifetime, the realest way we've ever talked about racism in this country. What would you say to your 14-year-old self, and to any of the 14, 15, 16-year-old girls right now, about what they can do to lend their voices?
Um, that's a really good question. Um, I would say first, of course, stay safe because we need you to have long lives to really make the impact that is necessary. And what I mean by that is, yes, America and the world is collectively mourning not just George Floyd, but also Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, Sandra Bland, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice. I mean, like, we could be on this call for the next 45 minutes just saying these names,
Naming all the names.
you know? So what's happening now is not a momentary thing. And
Mm-hmm.
the fight for equity and justice is never a momentary thing. There is always going to be something. There is always going to be somebody who could use your support in speaking up for them, whether it's in these issues or new issues that come up, because we're human beings, So understand that you're in this for the long run.
Mm-hmm.
Understand that this is a lifetime of work. So don't treat it as a trend. Don't treat it as, I just need to put 100% of my energy into this for the next week and it's going to boom. That's my effort. No, pace yourself. Speak up,
Mm.
but pace yourself, Be smart about it. Be safe about it. Learn as much as you can. When somebody challenges you and says, that's not right, try and understand not just the what, but also the why. Because, and that's like, and this is something that I had to do on my own too, because when Black Lives Matter movement first started, I was just starting to learn the real history of America on my own, because we sure know this is not taught in schools. And as an immigrant,
No.
it wasn't taught in India, And I went through all of high school and college and all of that. And then I'm like, what is going on here? So when Black Lives Matter movement first started, I was like, this makes no sense. Well, of course, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, Like, what is this? And then as I learned, but instead of, saying, oh, this is just, it doesn't make sense, I took the time to say, okay, where's this coming from? And then why are people contradicting or contrasting Black Lives Matter to say all lives matter? Like, no, duh. Like, why? What is, And so it is by unpacking all of that and unlearning all of that that I realized, like, the underlying why of, like the underlying pain, that the systemic nature of it, that it wasn't just a momentary thing. And that's what I mean by, like, focus on the why. Focus on why it is important for you to speak up. Why is it personally compelling for you to be a leader? Why is it that you want to use the power that you have, the power that you undoubtedly have within you that nobody else can take away from you? Why do you want to use it towards any particular cause? And how can you continue using that as not just a weekly trend or a tweet, but as a lifetime of work?
Yeah. And I think that's really important. That is so important to center that this isn't episodic, and the pacing, and also the different areas one can play in, but really understanding the history and understanding that, yes, in our academic system, it is not taught. But again, the history is always told on the side of the victor. So certain things are going to be omitted. But I love that you said that you took another step on your own. And so, my dear ladies, my beautiful girls, since you're at home, many of you have cell phone, you can start the Google search. And even if you do identify as Black or African American, still it will behoove you to understand your history, because it didn't start here in the Americas. You only have a small, just a sliver of your identity. And you didn't come over as slaves. You came over as human beings, as architects, as designers, as mathematicians, as scientists, as kings and queens. So please don't let anyone tell you that you came over here as a slave. Okay? It's really important to know. Okay? So know who you are and seek out who you are, and really understand that our experiences are all tied together, ladies. So whatever happens to one of us happens to all of us. So you don't let somebody come for your girl. So be a good girlfriend and don't let. Yeah, we have to understand as women that we are united in this, and it behooves us to stand with each other when our individual houses are on fire. You go put that house fire out. So that was a really great analogy that my coach had given me. The Black house is on fire right now. So let's get our water and our hoses and let's put that house out. And that house has been on fire for centuries.
Yeah. And the other thing I would also say is, and this is more for the parents of all of your girls, even if the school system doesn't hear your voice, that is not the only place where you can get an education, because we know our Department of Education has all sorts of problems right now, which are far beyond this episode. And I'm going to go off on a rant there. But one of the things that I know I started doing with my daughter is I started buying her books from India on the Indian culture. And then there were other books that I wanted to read that I couldn't find, of course I could purchase them on Amazon and things like that. But I thought, well, how can we make a bigger impact? And this was like back when I was living in Canton. So I approached the Canton Library and I said, here's a list of books that you're missing. Here's a whole list of voices and perspectives that you're missing. And I would go there like every week to be like, are those books in yet? Are those books on your list yet? Are those books on your list yet?
Mm-hmm.
And not all of them got onto the list, but a lot of them did. And so now not only was I able to rent those books for free,
Mm-hmm.
other people could too, So thinking about like the greater impact of if your school is not teaching you, what are other resources that you can
Mm-hmm.
pull, because these libraries also have interlibrary loans, and some of the library districts are in, richer districts. They can rent, they can get these books and then boom, interlibrary loan. How can we tap into this everything is interconnected, you
That's
know?
right.
Everything is interconnected. So how can we tap into the interconnectedness to get our unique needs met?
That's right.
And when we start thinking about that, we're able to tap into our creativity and we're able to tap into the collective like collaboration. And it's no longer a competition. It's a cooperative economy in that, when that
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. Thank you for that. So I just want to shout out the class of 2020.
Yes.
Our girls from WIC are graduating from 5th grade today, so super excited about that. And to all the graduates from high school and college, you made it. You made it in a pandemic and in a fallout of racial reconciliation. You still persevered. You made it. You did it. So please pat yourself on the back. And to employers, if these graduates come to you, know that they have a certain level of dexterity. Okay, coming
Yeah.
into it, because if they can survive this, they can do anything that you put in front of them. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm so happy again to have you. And don't be, you're welcome here. This is your space. You're welcome here anytime.
Yes.
We really appreciate you. And thank you for giving me one to grow on today. So we'll see you all next week. We have an amazing lineup. Miss Ebony Bagley will be on to talk about cyberbullying
Ooh.
and how to protect. Yeah, that's a good one. Yes. So how to speak up if you are, address if you are the bully. And so we're going to start to really unpack that and some tools and practical tips that parents will need so that you can see what your girl is up to, your young lady is up to online. So make sure you all tune in for that. Again, I cannot thank you enough. My heart's yours. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you. This was amazing. And
Yeah.
I am so inspired by you and how you stand up with these girls, not for them, but with them. I mean, for them, but also with them to help them realize that
Yeah.
that all they have to do is let that brilliance shine through. And all we have to do is get out of their way.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They have everything.
Yeah. So thank you for the work that you
So
do.
we're looking forward to more connections. Yeah. Oh, and thank you for the work that you do. So kiss Lays for me. I want to give her a big, big kiss, and all my baby nephew kids over there, my dogs. Like I got fur baby. So kiss the doggies for me,
I will.
and have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too.
All right. All right.